Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, Michael McCubs and Patrick Van Straten, fresh from his birthday. Wish Pat a happy birthday in the comments down below. And today we are talking about the champions. So excited because Kamel Welsh has said, do you think Man City finally have what it takes to win the Champions League? As we all know, the Champions League is back tonight after a 149-day hiatus. The final match, weirdly, was that Atletico Madrid victory at Anfield on the 11th of March. How long ago does that seem? So tonight we've got Juventus versus Lyon and Man City versus Real Madrid. But we want to discuss our general predictions about the overall winners for the competition. Very excited for this, as you can tell. And McCubs, we are kicking off with the probably overwhelming favourites, Bayern Munchen.
Yes. I mean, it's pretty understandable that they're favourites. Obviously, they still have to come through that last 16 tie with Chelsea, but they are 3-0 up from the Stamford Bridge leg. So it seems like it's going to be a formality, doesn't it? Obviously, they haven't won the competition since 2013. They've been there or thereabouts as one of the favourites in pretty much every season since. But they haven't made it to a final since then. Obviously, they've made 4 semis. Quite unfortunate in some of them. I seem to remember a Real Madrid game, which they were a Real Madrid tie, that they were pretty on top of, and Ronaldo just kind of came up clutch, didn't he, in the kind of right moments. But they're in absolutely ridiculous form this season, obviously under Hansi Flick, who's kind of transformed them since the turn of the year. 7th in the Bundesliga on the 14th of December, and since then 79 goals in all competitions, conceded only 17. And yeah, they've gone unbeaten. They've only not won one game. So I'm just looking at it here. I couldn't quite believe it, actually. They've only not won once, and they've been unbeaten since then. And that includes 11 wins from 11 games since the restart as well. So yeah, what was originally quite a close Bundesliga title race ended up just being an absolute rout, wasn't it? They ended up finishing 14 points off second place. Also won the DFB Pokal with relative ease. Leverkusen just were not at their level in the final. So yeah, this is a chance for them to kind of repeat that feat of 2013 and take the treble. And I mean, I guess the one concern is that they haven't played in a while. Obviously, the Bundesliga ended a lot earlier than Serie A, La Liga in the Premier League. So maybe they might, I mean, in terms of kind of match fitness or kind of that kind of psychological kind of element, maybe they'll be a little bit rusty, but then they're going to be a lot fresher. And Chelsea are very much not fresh, obviously, coming off such a congested Premier League restart schedule, that very disappointing FA Cup final. And they're without Kante, obviously Pulisic, who went off in the final as well. Azpilicueta they're without, and possibly Willian as well. It doesn't seem that likely that he'll. I mean, even if he's available to play, maybe he won't want to play, considering that this protracted move to Arsenal seems to be gathering a lot of pace. I mean, it might even be done by the time this goes out. Who knows? So yeah, I can't see them slipping up against Chelsea, to be honest. I just think they'll have too much for them. But I think, to be honest, I think Chelsea's the least of their worries. I think what really not counts against them, but I think the difficulty for Bayern is that they are on the tougher side of the draw. I'm trying to think, do they go up against Real Madrid or Man City in the next round, or would that be in the
Barcelona or Napoli? I think
so. Okay, so it's Barcelona or Napoli in the next round. I mean, either of those teams are not the easiest to play. Obviously, Barcelona. It's actually tough. It's tough between those two, because I think Napoli. I was listening to a podcast on kind of Napoli Barca the other day, and they kind of made the point, the kind of justified point that Napoli obviously won the Coppa Italia, and in general they have looked pretty good in kind of cup competition this year. So in a kind of one-legged tie, Napoli could maybe have the capacity to frustrate Bayern, whereas Barcelona might be a bit easier to play through. But I mean, you'd still back them in that. But then obviously in the semi-final, they would likely be playing Real Madrid or Man City, and that is easily the toughest game I think anyone could face before the final. At least compared with the other side of the draw, where probably Atletico Madrid are probably the toughest side you could face generally. So I think that's the one thing that counts against them a little bit, is that they've got a tougher run to the final than say a PSG or Atletico Madrid. And also they're missing Pavard, at least for the Chelsea game. They're hopeful that he'd be back for the quarter-final, but Benjamin Pavard could be quite a big miss, just because missing him does kind of alter the makeup of that back line a little bit. And I guess it depends what Hansi Flick wants to do, but I would personally probably put Odriozola there, although he hasn't played much football this season. Just because I think in the past, especially towards the start of the season, when Sula originally got that injury, they shifted Pavard to centre-back and they put Kimmich at right-back, and the whole team's balance was a little bit out of kilter, and I don't think they did particularly well in those games. Although obviously Kimmich is a top-class right-back and probably the world's best right-back only 18 months ago. Not having his presence in the midfield can really hurt Bayern. So I would, if I was Hansi Flick, go for Odriozola in that position, or I don't know, kind of tinker with the back line in a different way. But I think putting Kimmich back there might be dangerous for the midfield at least. But I mean, may as well run through their kind of key men going forward. Obviously Lewandowski's been ridiculous in the Champions League this season, if we didn't need to know already. 11 goals in 6 games. 13 goal contributions as well in total, so he's got a couple of assists in there as well. Underlying stats pretty unreal as well. 2.2 key passes, 1.7 dribbles. I mean, there's not really much more to say about him. Gnabry's also been excellent in the Champions League, obviously looking back at that 4-goal haul in the Spurs game. So he can really turn up on the big occasions. Tolisso as well, probably a player we haven't spoken about that much this season. It's funny actually, I wrote the underrated UCL Stars script, which went out this week on EFD, and I put Pavard as the kind of underrated player in the Bayern team. Although it's hard to find an underrated player in a team that's this dominant. But there were a lot of shouts actually for Tolisso instead in the comments, and he has been brilliant in the Champions League. He's not really played that much in the Bundesliga. I think a third of his minutes have come in the Champions League, and he's got 2 goals and 3 assists in 6 games. That's a goal contribution every 61 minutes. Wow. So I mean, he could be quite key in the latter stages as well. But Bayern in general, like I was saying, dominant all over. 7 of their players average more than 3 shots per 90, which is just unfathomable, really. I mean, I can't even think of another team that would ever have had that kind of showing in the competition. 8 average more than 2 key passes per 90 as well. This is the kind of stuff that I don't think you'd even have seen at Man City during the 17-18 season in the Premier League. So I think on paper, I think it's hard to argue against Bayern, but like I said, I think it will still be, they will have to be really on top of their game to get to the final. They've got, potentially 2 very, very tough ties in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, assuming that they are going to beat Chelsea. But like Pat's going to get onto, I think Man City will potentially be their toughest opponent should they get that far, and should the draw work out like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to look past Bayern with so many of their key men in such good form, but you just wonder about that, whether that slight break. I mean, they've only played, I think McCubs might have said, 1 game in the previous 42 days or something like that, so they're not coming in with so much momentum. And McCubs was actually saying pre-recording that Rafa Honigstein was on a podcast this week and saying that the mood in Germany is actually not as confident as you'd expect about Bayern. But to be honest, I can't really see past them. But for the sake of an argument and the sake of a good discussion, Pat, let's talk about Man City, because they are England's great hope in this competition. And it feels, after that verdict the other day, that they're able to compete in the Champions League. Maybe not quite as necessary to win it this year, but obviously they'll want to break that Champions League duck, and they go in pretty good form.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the season couldn't really have been better for them. except for not winning the title, I suppose. I mean, form-wise, they scored 3 goals a game after they came back from the hiatus and conceded half a goal a game, which is pretty insane. So despite those losses against Chelsea, against Southampton, against Arsenal in the FA Cup, they have been incredibly dominant since coming back. And it's kind of hard to believe that this is only their 9th season in the Champions League, because they are already among the elite of the competition. And I think, the question I think it's phrasing was like, are they finally ready to do it, or are they capable of doing it? I think they've probably been capable of doing it for the last couple of years under Pep. But actually, I'd say that though Pep, that win away against Real Madrid in the first leg of their round of 16, made him the most successful coach in the Champions League knockout stages. He's won 28 knockout fixtures. And it was also Zidane's first defeat in 12 knockout Champions League games. I actually thought it was the first time in a while that I thought Pep hadn't been a bit of a liability in the knockouts. Like, this is the thing about Pep. Like, Pep sets his teams up amazingly to just crush teams week in, week out. He's so good at building sides to do that. But we've also seen him in the Champions League over the last few years, including at Bayern Munich, have a tendency to slightly overthink Champions League games. Like, do you remember, there was obviously that famous defeat for Bayern against Real Madrid. And then I remember with Man City against Liverpool, when he played Laporte at left back against Salah, which worked out horribly.
Yeah.
I think he's quite often trying to do really weird stuff. And I understand that. Like, in a way, you kind of say that is what Pep does. But I thought that the game against Real Madrid was the first time I'd seen him do it, and it was like just like an unqualified success. Like, he left out Sterling, Aguero, David Silva, Fernandinho in the first leg against Real Madrid. And while they did go a goal behind, like, eventually they just were able to completely take charge of that game. Like, they ended up out-shooting Real Madrid and getting, I think, 8 shots on target to Real Madrid's 3 at the Bernabeu. And this is a good Real Madrid side. Obviously, they went on to win the league. They've been one of the form sides in Europe. Their defense has been excellent all year long. But they just got strangled, and obviously got Ramos sent off as well. Like, he just couldn't handle Gabby Jesus all game. So I thought that was an example of things kind of going right for Pep in a Champions League knockout game in a way that they hadn't for quite some time. The question is, what sort of Real Madrid are going to turn up? Like, kind of like McCubs was saying, it's a really difficult situation to say, like, what actually, like, has more of an effect, like freshness or being kind of prepared to play week in, week out. It's really hard to figure out which of those is more important at this stage of the season. But a load of players have ended the season in incredible form for Man City, and I just think that even if Real Madrid score, I can't see them getting a big enough win to overturn that. And then the question is whether Man City can get past Bayern after that, I think. Because obviously this side of the draw is the really tough one. Like, whoever emerges from this side of the draw, you imagine has got to be like the favourite for the competition. Just because, Barcelona's on this side of the draw, Bayern Munich's on this side of the draw, Man City's on this side of the draw. Like, it's really, really tough. And I think that though Aguero's going to be missing, Gabby Jesus has got 7 goal involvements in his last 6 Champions League games. Raheem Sterling's got 7 goal involvements in his last 7 Champions League games, and only 4 of those were starts. And when you look at the end of the season, I think Sterling had 10 goals in his final 11 matches. Obviously, De Bruyne has had an absolutely incredible creative season. And so I kind of think that no matter what teams can do to City, and it is easier to get through City than it has been in the past, I just back City to get a goal when they need it. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And over the last couple of years, I think that there's been a little bit too much weight given to results over performances. So I think that particularly that exit to Spurs last season, I thought that City were the better side in both legs and were kind of unlucky to go out. And I give Spurs credit for knocking them out. But I think, everyone looked at the Llorente goal and stuff and kind of thinks, well, okay, a bad bounce makes the difference at that stage. And from that point of view, technically, with one match fixtures, almost anything can happen. But I think that just having the ability to go to a different gear in attack is really going to make the difference there. Like, you look at some sides like Real Madrid, because Real Madrid's season has been so focused on having a really solid defense, they haven't actually scored that many goals in the league. It means that if a team can get through your defense, it's really, really hard to amp things up. Whereas if you're a team who can score basically at will, then you know that if something goes wrong, you kind of have a get-out clause, if that makes sense. So I don't know. As you can tell, like, I'm a little bit all over the place with Man City. I think that they'll get through this Real Madrid fixture, but after that, I just truly, truly do not know what to expect from clubs like Bayern against City. I do not know what City defence is going to turn up. I worry that Pep will once again just like over tinker and everything will go to shit. And so I think that Man City are probably the team to watch in that sense. Like you might get like the best side in Europe, and you might get like an absolute calamity, kind of late era Wenger, like defensive mess. So yeah, for all kind of City's brilliance, I'm not sure I'd put money on them to win the Champions League, but they absolutely have the tools to do it. And I think that if they can put in another good performance against Real Madrid, I'll feel a lot safer about them. Whereas right now, I can imagine them scraping through that fixture and actually managing to go into the next round with less confidence in their abilities than they did during lockdown. So yeah, Man City, an enigma.
Yeah, it is going to be strange. I mean, 9 league losses this year, and you make a good point about Pep tinkering with his side, because he even did that in the first leg at the Bernabeu. Gabby Jesus was sort of playing wide left. It was quite bizarre. He didn't start Sterling, Aguero, or David Silva, or Fernandinho, I think, as well. So some big names missing there. But yeah, as you say, if they can get through against Real Madrid, which looks increasingly likely considering Ramos isn't playing,
sure,
and Hazard isn't fully fit, even if he does play, then they've got a pretty good chance. It's just a real shame that they're on the same side of the draw as Bayern, because I think most purists would say that would be the dream final, Man City versus Bayern. But we move on, because there is another name in the hat, and, you know, as soon as the draw was made, I said that this was a potential upset. But if they get through against Atalanta, I think PSG have a great chance. The thing is, I mean, even more so than Bayern about freshness, they've only played 2 games since the 4th of March, which was the Coupe de France final when they beat Saint-Etienne 1-0, and they also beat Lyon on penalties in the Coupe de la Ligue final. Neither the game they were really at their best, but you can't really escape the fact that they are in excellent form overall. So since the 1st of November, they've played 30 games in all competitions. They've won 26 of them, drawing 3 and losing 1, which was that 2-1 away defeat at Dortmund, where Haaland had an absolute, cracker of a game. In that time, they've scored 93 goals and conceded 25. So not the sharpest defensively, but that's 0.8 goals against per game, but 3.1 goals per game, which really does show the dominance of PSG this year in a curtailed Ligue 1 season, and obviously through the Cup. So they've already got a domestic treble under their belt, but they are focusing on the Champions League. Finished 12 points above Marseille, despite having 11 games to play. They couldn't really have been more dominant. But their Champions League form has been pretty good. They look probably their best for years, I would say, in the Champions League. They've played 8, won 6, drawn 1 and lost 1, scoring 20 goals and conceding just 4, which I believe is the best record in the competition. That obviously included a statement 3-0 win over Real Madrid on the opening night of the Champions League, which we did a total football for, which literally seems about 5 years ago now. The only issue is, when you look at their Champions League numbers, they're not nearly as impressive as in Ligue 1. So they average 11.6 shots per game, which is massively reduced on the sort of, I think it's about 20 that Bayern average, which actually puts them 24th in the competition. And I can't quite work out why. Obviously, they had 2 difficult games against Dortmund and also had Real Madrid in their group stage. But even their defence hasn't been that good. So they've conceded 12.1 shots against per game, which puts them 12th. And they are facing a lethal Atalanta side, who scored 98 goals in 38 Serie A games, 2.6 goals per game. They were the best side in Italy according to expected goals, and they can really, when they get going, they can really rack the goals up. So they scored 3 or more goals in 15 of their 38 league games, and scored 8 against Valencia in the last 16. So a PSG side which, do have some issues as well. Mbappe looks like he's, most likely out. Kazar was out. Di Maria has a yellow card suspension. And most crucially of all, I heard yesterday that Verratti picked up a knock in training as well. So they are a massively depleted side playing against a lethal Atalanta side. The only thing in their favour, Atalanta, obviously their first Champions League campaign, don't have experience at this level. And in a one-off knockout game, I think it might be too much for them. And they, had their first defeat in 17 games against Inter Milan on the final game of the season. So don't necessarily come into it full of confidence. Although in a one-off game, I mean, this feels like it could be the shock of the round, really. But if PSG gets through that and Mbappe then is available, I mean, what a difference that's going to make, because he's got 5 goals and 4 assists in 7 games. That's quite frankly ridiculous. Icardi, 5 goals in 6 games. A lot of emphasis is going to be on him and Neymar in the Atalanta game, in the absence of Mbappe and Di Maria, of course, who's got 2 goals and 4 assists in 7 games. Interestingly, against Lyon in the Coupe de France final, they lined up in 4-3-3 with Verratti, who won't be available, Herrera and Paredes in midfield, and then Di Maria, who won't be available, Neymar and Sarabia. And Neymar really took the game by the scruff of the neck. He completed 5 dribbles, provided 2 key passes, and had 7 shots. But this feels like it's not just a massive night for PSG as they, attempt to reach their first ever semi-final, but a huge, huge night for Neymar as well. If he wants to get some sort of justification of his move to PSG back in 2017. This really does feel like a sort of career-defining game for him in many ways. And he comes in pretty good form. He's got 16 goals and 8 assists in 19 League and Champions League games this season. And get a load of his underlying numbers in the Champions League. 3.1 shots, 2.9 key passes, what you'd kind of expect, but 5.7 dribbles per 90 in the Champions League. The guy's just taking the piss at times. And whether he can perform, as I said, in the biggest game of their season and possibly his career, you'd argue, will have a massive, massive bearing on the outcome of this match. I mean, guys, not just in this game, Atalanta PSG, but can you see any other shocks, McCubs? Could Leipzig beat Atletico Madrid, or any other shocks? Could Lyon beat Juventus? What do you reckon?
I mean, Lyon Juventus could. I mean, that's really on a knife edge, isn't it? I mean, they are carrying a 1-0 lead into the second leg, so and Juve don't have an away goal, so that. I mean, yeah, I almost feel like it wouldn't be that big an upset if Lyon did it against. I mean, I'd still back Juve. I think I would still back you. I think I'd almost back Atalanta to beat PSG more than I'd back Lyon to beat Juve. I think Leipzig, Atleti might be tough without Werner. I think Patrick Schick will have to have game of his life. He'll have to just take his chance, or take the 1 or 2 chances that he gets, because he might, he may only get 1 chance. I think out of all of them, I think Atalanta is almost the most feasible, just because of those absences that you mentioned, like Verratti and Di Maria both out, and Mbappe. That's mad. That makes such a difference to that team. So yeah, I think I would back Atalanta out of all of those.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be fascinating. Okay, guys, we need a quick prediction. Pat, who is going to be your overall winner for the Champions League?
I think I'm going to say Bayern.
Fair enough. McCubs, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I want to be different. I'd like to say Atleti, but just Bayern. I can't really look past it.
Yeah, I mean, I love a rogue prediction in big match preview, but it just does feel like it's Bayern. And if it's not Bayern, I'm going to go Man City. It's going to be the winner of that semi-final. But guys, get your predictions for the overall champion, and we also want biggest disappointment, player to watch, etc. in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match preview. So obviously in big match preview we couldn't really preview Juventus Lyon or Man City Real Madrid, because it will kind of be out of date by the time most of you watch this. So we're focusing on tomorrow night's clashes, and Bayern Chelsea. We've talked about Bayern already, so we're talking about Barcelona Napoli. Huge tie, evenly poised, 1-1 between the sides. McCubs, Barcelona, can they be confident going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talked about upsets in in the last section, and we didn't necessarily touch on Napoli Barca that much. And this really could be an upset. Obviously, The first leg, I mean, yeah, obviously, like with all of these things, it seems like an absolute age ago. It was on the 25th of February, can you believe it? Yeah, I mean, obviously it ended 1-1. Barca were not good, really. Napoli really kind of nullified their threat. And from the word go, really, they didn't have a shot on target in the first half. They ended up with just 2 in the second. Obviously, there was, obviously Mertens opened the scoring with a lovely curled finish from just outside the area. Griezmann equalised, and ter Stegen was kind of the star man, really, kept Napoli out in the end. And they also kind of go into this second leg in, a little bit wounded as well. Busquets picked up a booking for catching Mertens, so he's suspended. Vidal got sent off in the last minute, so he's also suspended. And obviously Vidal's been particularly, at the time maybe wasn't as key a player, although he had kind of contributed a lot of goals in the kind of early part of the season. But he has been an increasingly key player for Setien, in terms of just kind of putting pressure on opposition players in their own half. He's been kind of his key presser. So that will be a big worry for Setien, how he kind of reformulates that midfield. We might see, I guess, Frenkie de Jong kind of move into the Busquets role, which would be quite exciting. But then I guess, it depends who he kind of plays ahead of de Jong. I guess maybe Rakitic and Puig might be quite a good combination. But yeah, neither of them are necessarily carry the same kind of aggression that Vidal does, and that will be quite kind of vital in this second leg at the Camp Nou, I think, in terms of kind of throwing off what are quite a relatively well drilled Napoli side, throwing them off, because I think they'll come into this with nothing to lose, essentially. But I mean, Barca do have, I guess if there's one thing going for Barca, it is their pedigree. They've progressed from their last 19 knockout ties after avoiding defeat away from home in the first leg, which is just goes to show just how difficult the Camp Nou is a place to go. Obviously, with no fans, it might be a little bit different, but still a mighty tough stadium to get a result at. And their Champions League form this season has been pretty good as well. I mean, they had a pretty tough group. Dortmund and Inter Milan, that was pretty much the group of death, wasn't it? And I seem to remember they were particularly good against Inter in the last game, which put Inter out of the competition. I seem to remember, I think they had Todibo even playing in that game. It was quite a young Barca side, but they had those clashes with Dortmund. Similarly, they were not the better team necessarily, and I guess it kind of shows that they've won 4 and drawn 3. So I guess that includes they won 4 in the group. So yeah, not been amazing. Drew 0-0 at home with Slavia Prague, all the way back whenever that was, September, October at home, and they've scored 10 goals in 7 games. So yeah, not vintage Barcelona. Obviously, a lot of that was under Valverde. Obviously, Setien only came in January, so he's only taken charge of 1 UCL game in his entire career. Actually, that was his first game. So yeah, I guess it's hard to look at. I guess, like Pat was saying, that it's hard to look at kind of Champions League form, from a team's perspective as well. In some ways, just because the group stages were so long ago. So I guess kind of looking at their league form since the restart, which also was very patchy, is probably a better way to kind of predict how they're going to be here. So they dropped 4 points. They dropped points in 4 of their 11 league games after the resumption. Obviously, that included that 1-0 loss to Osasuna in the penultimate game. They also drew 3 games. Including, I guess it was Atleti, was it Celta Vigo as well, games which they really did not look convincing in. Obviously ended up 5 points behind Real Madrid, having been ahead of them at the start of the restart. So yeah, not, obviously we've spoken a lot about how bad the season has been for Barca. They've lowest points tally since 2007-8, I think maybe lowest goals tally as well. So yeah, I mean, if there's never really been a better time for Napoli to come into the second leg, to be honest. Napoli came off, a relatively solid end of the season, as I guess Pat will tell us about. Again, not spectacular, but I think, I don't know. I'd still probably just about back Barca, but I think it's going to be super, super tight. And I think Barca are, again, like, I think they're not going to, Napoli aren't going to give them multiple chances. I don't think. I think it will take Suarez and Messi being on top form, and they'll need to take their chances as well. I mean, Suarez has been excellent in the Champions League, scored a couple of really memorable goals in the group stages. I think one against Inter, which was unreal, from kind of half volley from edge of the area. But 3 goals, 2 assists in 5 games, 3.7 shots, 2.3 key passes. Messi obviously pretty excellent, 3 goals and 2 assists, 8.8 dribbles per 90. So I mean he's obviously been carrying that team once again this season, hasn't he? We don't need to dwell on him too much. But yeah, I think this is, I mean, out of the last 16 ties remaining, I think this is maybe the toughest to call, actually. Like, it's, I'm not sure, what kind of Barca side is going to turn up, especially with the loss of Vidal. And if Napoli got an early goal, for example, I think they'll find it really, really difficult.
Absolutely, yeah. The pressure is pretty unbearable on Setien right now. It feels like he might well be removed if he doesn't win this tie. And after damaging, exits at the hands of Roma and Liverpool in the last couple of years, I think this will actually be, right up there on that level, despite the sort of lack of comeback. I think they will be really pretty embarrassed to lose to this Napoli side at home. But Pat, for Napoli, obviously they didn't get Champions League football, so this feels really, really important for them. They've got a lot of motivation. It might be their final Champions League game for a little while.
Yeah, well, obviously they're not in the Champions League next season because they finished 7th. They kind of have had a bit of an Arsenal season, finished 7th, but won the domestic cup, so they'll be in the Europa League next year. So, yes, I think they will be up for it, but maybe if they were on the other side of the draw, they'd be more up for it. Because here, if they knock Barcelona out, what's their reward? They've got Juve, they've got Bayern and Man City all on their side of the draw, and Real Madrid. Like, I mean, it's not like their odds of getting to their first Champions League final ever are particularly in their favour. But they have been fairly decent in the Champions League this season. Like, they're yet to lose in the competition. They've got 3 wins and 4 draws. But I also think that what's really Napoli's secret weapon in the Champions League is having a home game at the Stadio San Paolo. Like, it's a really difficult place to go. Like, they've had Liverpool a bunch of times in the group stage, and they often beat them there. They beat them there 2-0 this season. But the fact that fixture's already gone, and the fact it ended in a draw, means that I find it quite hard to see a path for them getting through. Like, they're perfectly capable of it. Like, since lockdown, 7 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses, and of those 3 losses, 1 was against Atalanta, 1 was against Inter Milan. So that's, those are kind of understandable defeats, and they've still got a load of forward players who are, despite their age, in excellent form. Like Mertens, I think, has got 7 goal involvements in 7 Champions League games this season. I think only Lewandowski and Haaland have scored more than him in the Champions League this year. Then you have guys like Milik and Insigne, if he's fit for this fixture, who are taking 5 shots a match in the competition. Callejon's creating over 3 chances a game. Like, these are huge, huge numbers. And in a way, that might be as big an incentive as the fact that they don't have Champions League football next year. The fact that this might be their last opportunity to play with this particular group of players. Like, it certainly looks like Koulibaly's going to be on the move this summer. Milik as well. Maybe Alan, maybe Fabian Ruiz. Like, these are loads of important players who could be on their way out, and it'll be their last chance. So it only really takes one of them to have a great game to make the difference in this fixture, because it is so evenly poised. On the other hand, Barcelona have Messi, and the probability of Messi having an amazing game is always much higher than the probability of anybody else having an amazing game. So it's doable, but I think even though they've got players in decent form, even though they've had decent results in the Champions League this year, it's hard to overlook the fact that this is one of their worst campaigns in a long time. It's their lowest finish since 2009. Like, that's how bad it's been. They lost 12 league games, and they've only lost more than that in the league 4 times since the year 2000. Like, so it's kind of historically bad this season. and was a real clear end to the kind of golden period they'd enjoyed under Sarri, and then to a degree under Ancelotti. So yes, I could potentially see them doing this. I don't think it's that likely, but they could. But I think that's the end of their competition. Like the best they can hope for, I think, is getting through and then exiting the quarterfinals. You know, unless Lyon do some magic against Juve, and I can't even remember what the draw is exactly, but yeah, I don't see them really going anywhere in particular. So to me, this is just a kind of fun, like, let's see what we can do, guys, kind of match, as opposed to guys, this could really be our chance, you know, like teams like Atalanta and Leipzig might reasonably be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is going to be really, really tricky for Napoli, particularly with Insigne a doubt as well, with a hamstring injury as well. He has been so crucial to them, particularly in the Champions League over the last few years. Actually didn't have his best league campaign for a little while. But yeah, Gattuso, I mean, it's just his second game in the competition as a manager. Big pressure on him as well, but it's kind of a free shot at the same time, as Pat was saying, and as McCubs was alluding to as well. Barcelona, as we've said, a lot of injuries to contend with. Busquets and Vidal are obviously suspended, but they've also got a real shortage of centre-backs right now. Umtiti, Todibo and Araujo are all injured, so it's going to be Longley and Piqué. God forbid if one of them picks up an injury, they are going to be absolutely screwed. So it's going to be really tricky for them. But this is just their second league meeting second meeting ever. So I can't really draw on any history, which I normally try and provide at this time. So we'll just see. But guys, we need your prediction. McCubs, what is your scoreline?
Oh, I might go for an upset, you know.
Ooh!
I know. Not to back Barca, but yeah, mate. I feel like Napoli might nick it in, like, after it might be 1-1, and then after extra time they might just nick it. I don't know. I just
love it.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know why. I just feel like that might happen.
Oh, it'd be great if there was pens. Oh, that'd be lovely. Okay, Pat, can you see pens? I can't even get my word out.
Yeah, I think it could be really boring, to be honest with you. I hate watching Barcelona in the Champions League. Just not interested in it. I really hope that McCubbin is right, but I'm going to go 1-0 Barca.
1-0 Barca. I'm going to go for pens. I really want them. I want them. On the Champions League second night back, I want pens. Make it happen, Gattuso and Setien. Guys, get your score predictions in the comments down below, and let's quickly move on to a very quick-fire question. Our quickfire question, we are literally going to do this absolutely rapido, because I didn't really rate any of your quickfire questions this weekend, guys. I'm afraid you need to up your game next week. But the one we have picked came in from Pooge Season, and it's what are your predictions for top scorer, best player, disappointment and surprise package? We've obviously covered a lot of that in the episode so far, so I'm just going to ask, who do you think is going to make the biggest difference? McCubs, you obviously wrote that underrated Champions League players.
Yeah.
Any one of those you want to particularly pick out, or someone new?
I can't really remember. I always write, whenever I write videos, especially tens, I just completely forget who I've put down there, even though I've kind of, you know, invested some sort of kind of emotional time into it. No, I can't really look past the main ones. I mean, to be fair, I wrote about Vinicius Junior, and I got a little bit of hate about it because, like, you know, he's been pretty unproductive in La Liga this season, but his Champions League form's been pretty good, and he was pretty much Real Madrid's only threat against Man City in that first leg, and he gave Kyle Walker a pretty tough time in the first half. So I think if Real Madrid are to beat Man City, because obviously they do go into that second leg as relative underdogs, I think Vinicius Junior might have something to do with it. So I mean, not necessarily in the whole tournament, but I mean, I think if Real Madrid are to progress, I think he'll have a decisive role to play.
I like it. You heard it here first. Vinicius, one to watch. What about you, Pat? Any best players, or who do you think is going to make the biggest difference?
Oh my god. We've covered a load of these guys, you know, like Neymar, and I think Sterling could be really important, because Sterling hasn't had an assist since October, you know. Yeah. But he's got a bunch of goals, and to me that kind of suggests that he is moving towards that thing that we were talking about a couple of years ago, of maybe Sterling was going to be more of a forward than a wide man in the long term. So with Aguero out, like, that could be something that we see a little bit more of, because he must be an absolute nightmare to mark, as if he's playing in a centre forward position, he's going to drop deep. He's incredibly fast. He's got a really tight turning circle. He's deceptively strong. He's capable of like dropping out to the wide areas as well. So I think that could be interesting. I suppose that if you think that we're going to end up with a Man City Bayern semi, then maybe it could be Gnabry, just because I think when you look at City and you try and find a weak area, left back is probably where it is, right? Like Mendy is suspended for the Real Madrid fixture, but even after that, like, I like Zinchenko, but he's a converted player. I kind of like Mendy, but I wonder if he's ever going to be the player we hoped he'd be. And so I think that whoever's occupying that right flank, when a team comes up against Man City, is going to really fancy it. And if they were to say come up against Barcelona, it'll be Messi. If they come up against Bayern, then it'll be Gnabry. So I think that's probably the key role to think about, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm actually going to pick someone different. Actually, I'm not going to watch this game tonight, obviously, because I'll be, only a madman would choose to watch Juventus Lyon over Man City Real Madrid. But if Lyon are to go through, Houssam Aouar is going to be crucial as well, and it'll be one of his final games alongside Lucas Toussaint, who's joining Hertha Berlin this summer as well. And he's just such a fun player to watch, whether he's playing in a midfield three or sometimes wide on the left and cutting inside. He's just an awesome player to watch, and one that promises so much. And there was so many links with sort of Man City about a couple of months ago. I haven't really seen that so much. So a couple of good performances in the Champions League, and his stock will rise a lot. But guys, that is all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. Enjoy the Champions League over the weekend, and of course the Europa League too, although we didn't talk about it on this episode. But Pat, the podcast this week was me and you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was How to Fix Tottenham, which actually is a surprisingly big job. We'll see if they actually...
It took us a while.
Yeah, we'll see if they do anything intelligent this summer. But it was kind of fun delving into the mess at a different North London club for once. So yeah, go and check that out.
Nice. Anything from you, McCubs?
I mean, on the subject of How to Fix, go and check out the How to Fix Arsenal that we did on this channel, and the How to Fix Barcelona. There's been a lot of those videos recently. So yeah, check out our scout reports, check out the football pyramid between myself and Henry. Actually, it's going out tomorrow as well. So yeah, lots of stuff on EFD.
Lots of good stuff. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.